So today we're finally going to do the squat tutorial, and again this is through many years of observation and also talking with a lot of lifters. You know, for example, Tom Keene, he showed me a lot of aspects with the squat, and just other lifters, observing other lifters. But again, this is my interpretation of what I think a squat should be. So as I discussed in a previous video, we always do the setup here with the covering the mirror. Again, for kinesthetic awareness, make sure you set your pins not too high, so maybe a little lower than where you actually squat. Again, I also have my safety pin set. Normally, you know, if I'm doing a really heavy squat and you know I don't really want to spend too much energy walking it in, I may rest it on these pins here. But again, you know, if you can, try to return it to the original rack position. So again, this is just one of my quirks that I do for the squat. So before we even squat or do anything, make sure, obviously, you have a shirt on. This is just a Nike dry fit shirt. And before I actually do anything, do squat or even push a bar, I chalk my back. So I have a block of chalk here, and I'm going to chalk where the bar will rest on my back. Now I'm going to do the middle. So I always start with the bar, okay, and let me demonstrate before I do anything. So always make sure you use good collars. So usually you can tell by tugging on one of the ends here. So it's pretty stationary. So you may ask, where do you want the bar placed in the rack? So in relation to the height. So for me, I do it just about a high chest level. So it's actually above my nipples. But again, it's generally you know, up to your personal preference. But you don't want to set it too low because you don't want to expend too much energy taking the bar out of the rack. So again, this is about where I place the height for the squat. I'm going to actually put my wrist wraps on for this. So even starting with 135, because I place my hands so close, I start with the wrist wraps. So in regards to hand placement, this is where I place my hands. So this is how closely I place my hands. Actually, the index finger is within this smooth portion here. So it's touching my delts. But you have to keep in mind that initially when I started squatting back in December 2005, my grip was actually out to, actually it might have been up to here or around here. So it's either the index finger on the ring, and it gradually, within a short period of time, it moved to the pinky on the ring. So you can see the progression of how much the grip moved in. So it came from actually about here all the way in here. So you may ask what this does. So again, this is an observation I made from the Russian and the Taiwanese national teams. They place their hands in very close. So you know, this will include the vast majority of lightweight and middleweight lifters. And what this does, it creates a shelf or a groove in your back for the bar to rest on. So let me demonstrate. Placing my hands in close, like I stated, it will create a groove or a shelf in your back for the bar to rest on. And if you do a low bar squat, it maximizes the surface area the bar is resting on. Also, it's closer to your center of gravity. So if you do have a high bar squat, again, it's going to be resting higher on your back. Also, there's going to be less surface area for the bar to rest on. Again, so that may lead to imbalance issues, or again, it may lead to less stability. But again, it's highly individual. The entire Norwegian national team uses high bar. So again, it's personal preference. But again, my stated types of advantages using a low bar is it maximizes the surface area the bar is resting on, and also is close to your center of gravity. Also, it creates a shelf or groove for the bar to rest on while you're doing the back squat. So let me demonstrate. Okay, I'm still setting. bar on my back. So about here is where the shelf is created. And you see how I'm upright? So I generally use the low bar placement, also keeping my hands very close. So let me give you other scenarios. So let's say I used a low bar position with a very wide grip. So you see here, I'm not creating much of a shelf on my back, okay? So the bar has a tendency to slip. And let's demonstrate the high bar. So if I do the high bar, again, the surface area that the bar is resting on is very small. Okay, and also it's further away from your center of gravity. And you see how you can be unless you have your setup perfectly precise. Okay, so let me demonstrate other methods that I don't endorse. So some people actually grab the bar with their wrists, and again, that doesn't engage your grip, or again, really keep your upper back tight. Some people do this, which I don't endorse at all. And some people like to do a thumbless grip, again, which won't fully engage your grip or engage your upper back. So you have to, again, for my interpretation, you really have to keep your thumb over the bar like so, and really grip it tight. So I don't endorse this. I don't endorse holding the bar like this. And let me show you what happens when the bar is held too low on the back. So I'm going to do a really low bar position, let's say about here. See, what's going to happen is I have to accommodate the bar by doing a forward lean so the bar doesn't fall off my back. So I don't endorse this either. Olympic lifters use a high bar squat, but you'll notice that on the world level, the vast majority of powerlifters use low bar squat, again, because they're maximizing the surface area the bar is resting on, and it's fairly close to your center of gravity. So that's the first aspect that I want to talk about. So next, I want to talk about the actual walking out of the weight. So in the IPF, we all have to walk out of the weight. Again, it's a large part of the squat. I would say it's half the battle, trying to set up the squat. So here, I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to break it from the rack, like so, okay? And you want to wait until the weight is settled. So you don't want to walk out the weight as the weight is still moving. So it's very important that the weight is fairly motionless before you start stepping back. Some people like to minimize the amount that they're walking out to a certain extent. So let me demonstrate that. So I'm going to, again, set the bar like so. I'm going to walk out, take one step back, one step to the side, and another step to the side. Okay, so that's also a three-step method that you can do. So again, for my purposes, let me demonstrate four-step walkout. Again, this is just because of the type of rack that I'm using. I have to clear the space in order for me to squat properly. So let me show you again. Okay, I'm going to set it on my back, break it from the rack, wait for it to settle, back, back, side, side. Okay. And let me show you another method. Again, this is primarily if you're using a freestanding rack, such as a ER rack. It's a three-step method. So I'm gonna break from the rack, bam, back, side, side. So that is the walkout. So again, some people use 3-step or some people use 4-step. And let me demonstrate why you shouldn't use a 2-step walkout. So here, so in order for me to set my stance in 2 steps, they both have to be side steps. So I'm gonna break from the rack, and if I already am trying to set to the side, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna clip the rack like this. So step to the side, bam, it's clipping the rack. So that's why I don't endorse a 2-step walkout. So we already covered how close I grip the bar and the reasons why. Again, that's primarily to help for the upright posture, and also the next step that I covered was the actual walkout. So again, it can be a 3-step walkout, it can be a 4-step walkout, again just depending on your situation of what kind of rack you use, and I don't endorse a 2-step walkout. So let's move on to the next topic, and that's going to be squat stance width. If you have a very wide setup in the IPF, it really doesn't contribute to a good setup for the squat, because we do walk the weights out. It's going to lead to instability if you go wider on the stance. So the wider you go on the stance, the more variability you have in the stance width, because again, it'll be harder to control under a maximal amount of weight, and also it's just more difficult to set up. So that's why in general IPF lifters have you know, somewhat of a closer stance, but again some do very wide. For example, Eric Kupperstein did a very wide stance squat, but again I don't really endorse that type of squatting. So again, in general, it really boils down to personal preference, but I do a shoulder width stance. Again, it's fairly easy to set up, and also you know, I feel that I have power in that stance. However, other lifters may go wider or may go slightly narrower. So again, it boils down to personal preference. The next topic I want to go over is how you should have your toes pointed. So if you don't have a problem with your mobility, your hip mobility, then I would suggest keeping your toes fairly straight. Again, this will really you know, recruit your hip more so than your toes out like this. And you may ask why you externally rotate the toes out like this. It's mainly because lifters in general don't have the hip mobility to squat below parallel without placing your toes like this. So again, those with limited hip mobility will in general point their toes out. Those you know, who have good hip mobility will generally keep their toes fairly straight, or about at a 11 to 1 location for the stance. So again, if you're lacking hip mobility, do this. If you're not lacking hip mobility, keep your feet fairly straight. After going through these topics, you're ready to actually squat down, and this is a departure from what I've read, and again just what the vast majority of lifters believe is correct. So in America, actually, so in general in America, what's taught is keep your hips back. So the first thing you do is throw your hips back on the squat, and I don't really like this method because it can really contribute to rounding of the back or too much utilization of the back. So again, this is why I brought up one of my mentor lifters, Tom Keene. So Tom, he analyzed my squat a few years ago, and he stated that for many European lifters and other lifters in general, or for example lifters in Taiwan, they actually break at the knees first. So this is really important. So if you break at the knees first, you're going to create a space for the descent of the squat to be upright. So you notice that most IPF lifters are extremely upright, and how they create this is by breaking the knees first. So if you break the knees and you if you push your knees out, it's going to create a space for you to squat in. So instead of keeping your hips back or squatting back, you want to squat down. So again, the technique that I eventually learned was to break at the knees first, push them out to create a space for the torso to drop into. So if you don't push your knees out and your stance is fairly close, what's going to happen is your torso is going to fold over your legs, or it's going to fold over your thighs. and again that can create to or lead to a rounded squat. So you want to break at the knees first. Don't make it too pronounced. Make it very subtle, but break at the knees first. Push your knees out on the eccentric, and you're going to drop down on your heels. You're not going to be squatting back. You're going to be squatting down. And again, you want to make a careful balance. So you don't want to push your knees out forward too much. Again, you want to do it to an extent where you're still upright, but you're not pushing your knees out too much, because again, you're not going to be utilizing too much of your posterior chain for the squat. So again, it's a delicate balance, but let me demonstrate. So I'm going to set the bar, low bar position, break it, back, back, side, side. I'm using the 4-step, again, due to the type of rack I use. Okay. I'm going to push my knees out. Okay, and I'm also breaking a forward. So you see that? And then I'm going to drop down. I'm going to break the knees forward. I'm going to push them out, drop down. So actually I skipped a step as far as breathing goes. I reviewed this in a previous video, but you want to take all the breath into your stomach. So when you're breathing, you really want to expand your stomach and keep it full. See what I'm doing here? And I'm relaxing. So this is going to create the pressure that you need to push against your belt. Okay. So let's go over squat again. So I'm going to use my very close hand position, set it on my back. Okay. I'm going to break it from the rack. Bam. And in general, you want to keep your head up. You want to keep your head up as you're racking or taking the bar of the rack. So the 4-step setup, I'm going to keep my head up. Then I'm going to breathe. And I cock my head back. Again, I believe it helps me keep the upright position. Okay, then I'm going to break the knees. I'm going to break the knees and I'm going to push them out like this. Okay, and don't make it too pronounced. Then I'm going to drop down, not back. Okay? So again, that's the observation that I made as far as lifters in the IPF. They generally break at the knees first, so let me show you a side angle. So I hope you guys learned something. If you have any additional questions, comment down below. Next time.